Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a progress bar like the one in the picture using HTML and CSS. There are plenty of tutorials online that explain how to do it, but I found that many of them are bloated in the sense that they either have too many HTML elements or they are based on JavaScript when truly you don't need that. You can do this just with a single HTML element and CSS. Let's see how we can do it. We start by adding the HTML element that is going to be a div, and we can close the JavaScript panel because we're not going to need it. Let's focus on the CSS for now. We want the progress bar to be a circle, so what we're going to do is that we're going to start from that shape. Let's start by making it a square that is going to be, let's say, 200 by 200, and I'm going to put a background of red just so it's visible on the screen. This already has a problem. If we want to change the width of the height, we need to update two values. We could do this by having custom properties, but instead what we can do is using aspect ratio. So we can put an aspect ratio of 1:1 that is telling that it has to have the same width for the same height. So it's always going to be a square. And because they are the same value, we can reduce it to just 1. So now, for example, you can see that if we change this to 400, both the width and the height will update to 400. Let's put 300 for now. And to make it a circle, what we do is that we use border radius of 50%. With that, we already have our circle. But that looks more like a pie chart than a progress bar. So let's start creating the progress bar in itself. For that, we're going to use the pseudo elements before and after, and we're going to position them in an absolute way. So we want to keep them within the container, so we're going to add a position relative to the div. And now we can work on the before. The before we're going to use to make the line in itself. So let's see how it would go. First, we would add a content that is empty. We say it's position absolute, top 0, left 0, oops, and it's going to have a width and height of 100%. That way it's going to match the whole box. Now what we do is that, let's imagine that we want to have a progress bar that is at 60%. So we're going to use a conic gradient to generate that. Let's do it with a background. And we say conic gradient. We want it to be blue until 60%, and then a light blue that is going to be sky blue, for example, 0. And that will generate the bar, but you can see that now it's no longer a circle, it's a square. That's because the before is overflowing the div, the container part. So what we do is that in the container, we add overflow hidden. And now we're back to the circle. But again, this looks more like a pie chart than a progress bar. What I would normally do is that I would add a radial gradient that would be white until, let's say, 55%, and then transparent 0. That way, it would look like the progress bar that we want. But this approach has a problem, and let's see it. If the page's background, let's say it's green, the problem is that our progress bar, the center is still white, so it doesn't match the background. We would need to update this color to green. But then we would need to change our progress bar to adapt to every single page where it is, and that is a problem. And this is where Temani Afif, he's at Challenges CSS in Twitter, helped me with this. And it was an interesting approach. Instead of using the background, what he recommended was to use a mask, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So what we would do is, with the same background, the radial gradient background, we would put it as a mask, and we would say the mask mode is alpha. So we want to hide the alpha section. This is not going to work because we need the vendor prefix. The good thing is that even Firefox admits the WebKit for mask. so that's good. And one problem that we have, is that I have them the other way. So let's put transparent, that can be written as has 0, 0, 0, 0, and let's put just a color here. Now we see the center red because the parent is red. So let's remove that. And that's great. Now the center is the same color as the background, the page background. And you can see it here. I'm going to change it to yellow. But that color hurts a lot. So let's put it back to white, or let's just remove it for now. And that's how we create the circle and the progress bar in itself. Let's continue by adding the value in the center. So we can do that by using the after pseudo element. Let's put this here. And what we would do is that the content would be 60%, let's say. And now it's not being displayed because the value is here and we have the overflow hidden. So one thing that we can do is put a display grid and place item center. And that's how you center vertically and horizontally in CSS, only 2 lines of code. And you can see now we have the 60 here. We can make it look a little bit better by say, hey, font family, let's put Helvetica, Arial, sans serif. So it will use Helvetica. If it's not available, it will go to Arial. If it's not available, it will go to the default sans serif that the system has. Then let's make it a little bit larger. Let's say 3 rem. That looks a little bit better. And now we have a progress bar, and we did it in like 29 lines of code, including white spaces. But there's a problem. Right now, the value is fixed to 60, and it would be really inconvenient to have to go all the time to the background to change the 60% to something different. So what we're going to do is that we're going to use custom properties to deal with this. Ideally, I would love to do something like this. Div data value equals 60. And then read the value to use it in the background and in the content. But the problem is that data attributes cannot be used that way because CSS treats differently the custom properties, data attributes, counters, things like that. So what we need to do is, instead of putting as a data value, we're going to use style, and we're going to put it as a custom property, value 60. Once we have the value, what we can do is use the calc function to read the custom property value and multiply by 1%. And now you see, if we want to change the value to 40, we just need to do 40, and the bar should change here. There it is. It may be 75, and it goes here. Let's put it back to 60 for now. Another problem is that this value in the middle is not changing. That's because we fix it. And one issue with this, again, is that you cannot put custom properties in the content. But it is a number, so what we can do is that we can set a counter, let's say percentage, that is going to have the value as the content. And then what we can do is counter percentage here. And we would put then the percentage. And that's how it is. So now if we change the value here, 33, it will update not only the bar, but also the value. And with this, we have a really simple working progress bar with only a single HTML element and CSS. And it's really simple. You can see 1 HTML line and 30 CSS lines. But there's more to it, and we are going to continue because we need to add accessibility. Accessibility is essential for every project. And right now we have a big issue with that, because if a screen reader arrives to this element that is a div, it will basically ignore it because it's empty, or it may read the after element, 33%, but the user doesn't know what 33% is. So one thing that we can do is start by adding a role of progress bar. Then we're going to add some ARIA attributes. They say that the first rule of ARIA is not using ARIA, but in this case we need it. So we are going to use the ARIA value now, that is going to be 33. Then we're going to specify ARIA value min, that is going to be 0, and ARIA value max, that is going to be 100. This is so the screen readers or the assistive technologies in general, when they reach our progress bar, will say, oh, this is a progress bar because it has the role progress bar. The current value is 33. The minimum value that it can have is 0, and the max is 100. And it will announce it to the users that way. And that is important because we want everybody to know what the progress bar is, what is the current value, and how it goes. And now we can focus on the styles a little bit more. And let's start by, for example, selecting just a div is a bad idea because our web page is going to have a bunch of divs most likely. So the selector, instead of being for a div, is going to be for a div that has a role of progress bar. And we can do that by using brackets and the attribute selector. And this is like this. So now the divs that have a role of progress bar will have these styles. And we could even remove the div, but for now, we're going to keep it that way. And we would do the same for the before and for the after. That way, our CSS selector is more specific, and it will only apply to the progress bars instead of to every single div on the page. We want to also add customization, so the progress bar is not always this blue and light blue. And for that, what we're going to do is that we're going to use custom properties. So let's say we're going to color 1, or maybe instead of color 1, let's put primary. The primary color, oh, I cannot type today, is going to be blue. And then the secondary color, secondary, is going to be, what should it be? We put sky blue, so let's put sky blue. And what we do here is that in the gradient, we're going to say this is the primary and this is the secondary. Why do we do that? We do it so later it's easier to change the colors. Let's imagine that instead of this blue, we want to have another blue that is a little bit darker, like this. And instead of this white, we want to have, oh, this light blue, we want to have one that is lighter, like that one. So what we can do is have these values by default, although I don't like this one, it's kind of dark. ADF, maybe a little bit better, it's kind of light, sorry. Let's make the text color the same one as the primary, so we have consistency with our component. That's good. And another change that we can make is adding animations to make the bar grow by itself. This is going to be a problem also. There's a lot of problems in this video because we cannot animate backgrounds. We can actually, we have the add property, but it's not supported by any browser, I think only by Chrome. So this animation is only going to work with Chrome, but eventually when the rest of the browsers catch up, they will have an animated progress bar. Let's see how that's done. First, we define the animation using keyframes, and let's call it like, progress. And what we're going to do is that we're going to start with a percentage of 0, and then we're going to go to 100%, a percentage of the value that we have. So let's say value. That is going to be our animation. We then add the animation to here, and notice that we're using percentage instead of value. So we need to change where it says value here, we need to change it to percentage. Oops, I activated the caps locks. Percentage, and we need to add a percentage back here, and by default let's put the percentage to bar value, like that. Hopefully that will work. There it is, it loaded correctly. What we would do now is add the animation. Let's say progress, it's going to take 4 seconds and it's going to be linear for now. And as I mentioned, the problem that we have is that because we are trying to animate a custom property, is not working correctly. You can see that what happened was that it just did it from 1 to the end. So what we're going to do is that we're going to say add property of percentage, and we're going to declare that variable. We're going to say, hey, it is a number. It doesn't inherit, so this is a false, and the initial value is going to be 0. And hopefully, if I did it correctly, it should animate, but it seems that it didn't do it correctly. Let's see. What we have is that the inherits, we set it to false, but then the line is used within the before. So we actually need to inherit the value. So this should be true. Let's see. And there you see. Now 4 seconds is too much. So let's make it 1 second only. And another problem that we have here is that you can see that the percentage, we don't like that, or at least I don't like that it's 0 while it grows until it gets to 33. So let's put use value here instead of percentage. That way it displays that. And instead of making it linear, let's make it just the regular thing. And what we're going to say is stay at your value. So let's put forwards here. So the end state of the animation remains. Now, if we change the value, we will need to change it to in both the style and the value now. So that's important for accessibility. So if we change it to 67 and 67, it will grow fast. What we can add maybe is a small delay. Let's see, 0.5 seconds. So this would be the delay, this would be the duration. Yeah, that wasn't that great. Let's see how about that. Oh, maybe I put it the other way around, my bad. So there it goes. That looks a little bit nicer. So this is the duration and this is the delay. I put them together. One thing that we may need to change is the size of the text here, because right now it works fine for a width of 300, but if we change it to 100, then we have a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a size here of 300 pixels, and we're going to use the custom property. We're going to say bar size. And then the text, instead of being just 3 rem, that is like absolute to the font size, what we can do is we can calculate it based on the size. So let's put here size. Normally that's going to be too much. Yes, so let's divide it by 3. Let's see how it goes. That may be still too much. Divide it by 5. That looks a little bit better. So now when we change the size to 100, the text is going to change and it's going to be proportional to the progress bar size, and that's really good. The only problem that I think we have is that if we use a percentage here, yeah, the text is a little bit messed up, so we need to avoid percentages. Let's go back to 300 pixels. With this, we're done with our progress bar. We can have multiple ones on a page. Let's put here 44, 44. And because we didn't add classes, we only use like the attribute. We can add a class of progress2 to this one, and a class of progress1 to this one, and we can customize them independently. So for example, we can say progress1, the primary color is going to be a reddish color, and the secondary is going to be gold. And oh, it didn't apply because of specificity. So yes, here we specify a tag and an attribute that counts almost as a class, well, as the same as a class. So we can remove the element, and the cascade will do it for us. There it is. So there you have it. So we can customize each progress bar independently. We can set up different widths if we want to. And size, sorry, it's not width, it's size. Yes, and it will work proportionally. So let's remove this one, we don't really need it. And what we can do, again, we can say here margin 0, display grid, place item center, and this would be body, actually, body, and height 100 VH. This is only for the demo, so the thing ends up in the middle. But that's how you create a progress bar with a single HTML element. We don't need the, oh yes, we need it. We can remove it anyway. That's how you create a progress bar with a single HTML element, just some CSS. In total, we have like 47 lines of CSS, and that's including blank spaces and some things here. And it's accessible. That is something that many of the progress bars online are not. So we have a accessible, customizable, responsive progress bar, and it took us just a little bit of time to develop it. Thank you for watching. Bye.